الروم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Rome has been defeated, and there is absolutely no two answers to the question of who is Rome. The answer of who is Rome must be answered by the Quran, not by the Hadith. If you want to go to the Hadith for the definition of Rome, you are a dumb. Go find another teacher. The answer to the question, who is Rome, must come from the Quran. And when you go to the Quran, there's only one answer. It's the Byzantine or the Christian Empire. And Allah says that He intervened to help them. He intervened. بِنَصْرِ Allah intervened to help a Christian people. Did you hear that? Or is it too difficult for your skull to accept that Allah can intervene to help a Christian people? They had the same beliefs at that time as they have now, the Orthodox Christians. They worship Jesus, Nabi Isa alayhi salam at that time. They had the Trinity and all of these things they had at that time. And Allah intervened to help them. بِنَصْرِ And they were able to defeat their enemies, the Persian Empire. And then having defeated them, Allah then subhanahu wa ta'ala then went on to say, min qabl wa min ba'd wa yawma idhin yafrahul mu'minun. They were able to be victorious by Allah's help, bi Nasrillah, on two occasions, twice. And on both occasions, the believers would be rejoicing and celebrating the victory of a Christian people. The first one was already mentioned, and it occurred in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. And so there is a second victory of Rome which is to come. And when that victory of Rome comes, it will be on the basis of help which comes from Allah, بِنَصْرِ And when that victory comes, it will be a time for Muslims to celebrate. If that is uncomfortable for you, you can't stomach it, you cannot stomach the Quran, what can I do for you? You want to cross swords with me, come to the Quran. Let us talk on the Quran. If I am wrong on my explanation of the Quran, come and tell me what's the right thing. So there is a second victory of Rome that's coming. That's what the Quran tells us. And Rome is a Christian people. Rome was divided into two parts after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. There was one part of Rome which continued to follow Nabi Isa alayhi salam. And we know how you can recognize them that they were still following Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, because they do not allow a man to marry another man and get a marriage certificate. And another part of Rome broke away and formed Western Christianity, and we know that these are the ones who committed the kufr. A man can marry another man and get a marriage certificate there. So you now have two Romes. This is history. And Allah says in the Quran, when He spoke about the crucifixion, the attempt to crucify Nabi Isa alayhi salam, which is my subject on Friday night, inshallah, Yawmul Jum'ah. وَإِذْ قَالَ اللَّهُ يَا عِيسَى إِنِّي مُتَوَفِّيكَ وَرَافِعُكَ إِلَيَّ. O Jesus, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, I'm going to take your soul, your nafs and your ruh. وَرَافِعُكَ إِلَيَّ, and I'm going to raise you unto myself, إِلَيَّ. وَمُطَهِّرُكَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and I'm going to purify you of all that mud that they threw against you, those people who committed kufr, who rejected you as the Messiah, who declared that your mother committed sin, and those who support those rejections. These are the people to be cleansed. وَجَعِلُ الَّذِينَ تَبَعُوكَ, and I am going to cause those who follow you, that part of the Christian world which follows you, فَوْقَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, I will cause you to become ascendant and dominant over the other part of the Christian world, which is in kufr. Ila yawmil qiyamati. And when that takes place, it will continue until Judgment Day. That has not taken place as yet. That ascendancy of one part of the Christian world, which is following Nabi Isa alayhi salam, where a man cannot marry a man and get a marriage certificate, over the other part of the Christian world where a man can marry another man and get a marriage certificate, that ascendancy or dominance of this part over that part has not as yet taken place. It is now taking place. And when it takes place, it will continue. NATO can do what you want. You cannot stop it. Once Allah causes this part of the Christian world to be raised in eminence and dominance over that part of the Christian world, it will continue until the end of the world. If you can't stomach the Quran, what can I do for you? And so it is from the Quran that you must first go and get guidance. Allah speaks in the Quran. I'm sorry that I have to take a whole hour to answer this question. If you had done your homework, all of you who've been asking the question, I don't have to spend all this time to answer this question. If you had done your homework and gone to the Quran to study the subject and then assess the hadith. Allah speaks in the Quran about a Christian people who will be closest in love and affection for you. And He gives the description, and I've 10,000 times I've already explained that verse of the Quran. But it goes into one ear and it comes out the other ear. Yes. Who are those Christians? I say they are the Orthodox Christians, but you respond and say, they have killed 10,000 babies in Syria, and they're raping all the Christian women, all the women of Syria, and so on, and all that garbage that came out of a garbage bin, and it should go back into the garbage bin. That's all the rubbish that you have to be throwing at me when I come with the Quran. When I come to the Quran, don't come with rubbish. When I come with the Quran, respond with the Quran. And let us understand and seek, what does the Quran say? These are the people, the Orthodox Christian world, that Allah has spoken of in the Quran. And Russia is the leader of this Orthodox Christian world. But no, you might say it's not Russia, it's Washington. That's your thinking. Russia is the leader of the Orthodox Christian world. And it is that Orthodox Christian world that Allah has said in the Quran are going to be closest in love and affection for you. But you don't want to hear that. It's sticking in your throats. You don't want to hear that. And Allah has spoken about another Christian people. And He has said about those Christian people who make an alliance with the Jews, don't take them as your friends and allies. Because if you take them as your friends and allies, you're no longer a Muslim. You join them. So when you go to the hadith and you find a room in the hadith which now launches war on the Muslim because one Muslim got up and one Christian got up and said that the cross is victorious, and a Muslim comes and kills him and says, no, Allah is victorious. And then the whole Christian army turns on the Muslim army and fights and kills the Muslim armies and so on. How do you assess this nonsense? If it is a valid hadith, then how do you assess it? If it is a fabrication, it's nonsense. It could not be the room of the Quran. And I am talking about the room of the Quran. I'm not talking about any other room. So either one of two things. You should have done this work already. You should have come to the conclusions already. I should not have to do this homework for you. If I have to do this homework for you when I leave this world, how can you extend the frontiers of knowledge in Islamic eschatology? I expect to be leaving behind me scholars who will grow and become taller in knowledge than I am. That's what I want from you. The hadith is either in conflict. This part of the hadith is either in conflict with the Quran, because in the Quran, Rome is not our enemy. Rome will not behave in this way. Now, so this part of the hadith could be a fabrication. And if it is a Sahih hadith, and if it is a valid hadith, then this is another room that the Prophet is speaking about. It could not be the room of the Quran. So what do you do when there is a conflict between the room with the hadith and the Quran? Number one, you stay with the Quran. And if this is not the room of the Quran, there is another room, you have to identify who are these that Allah's Messenger is speaking of as room. Who will fight against us? We have an alliance with them, and then they will fight against us. They will betray that alliance. It could not be the room of the Quran. I am speaking about room of the Quran. So if you want to be critical of me, you have to come to show I am wrong in my explanation of the Quran. If I am right in the explanation of the Quran about an alliance with Rome, then you'll have to accept that the room of this hadith cannot be the room of the Quran, and I should not have had to spend 15-20 minutes to explain that to you. Frankly, I'm disappointed.